There's a common joke they talk about in Brazil that many of the Brazilians will say, and it'll be basically, you know, God, how is it fair that, Brazil is so perfect? That they have amazing weather and there's no natural disasters. Brazil doesn't really they don't have tornadoes or hurricanes or earthquakes or a lot of these things that a lot of countries have, floods, and the people are so nice, and it just seems like such a perfect thing. God, what was the one bad thing you gave to Brazil, if any? And he said, oh well, I gave them a tough political situation. And so a lot of people make the politics in Brazil are often at the butt end of the joke, and that there's a lot of corruption, and for a long time there's a big distance between the upper class of Brazil and the lower class of Brazil, and there's a very small middle class. And in recent years that's begun to change, and they say that every single day in Brazil thousands of people are starting to enter into the growing middle class, and for the first time in a long time, and the first time ever, basically, this middle class is becoming an important part of the country, and people are driving for the first time. People say that Brazilians are bad drivers, and I don't know if they're bad drivers, but if they are, I would guess it's because their parents didn't drive and their older siblings didn't drive, and they're the first ones to drive in their families, and they've never had the example of someone to watch how do you turn right, and how do you pull the clutch right, and all these things. So I think there's some growing pains there, and there's also a sense of what they call new business in Brazil and old business. And old business is, you want to get something done, okay, well you pay me a little something on the side and I'll help you get that done. A lot of bribing and that kind of thing. And then there's this notion that's coming on the scene now in Brazil they call it new business, where people, it's not about the bribes, it's not about who it's more about what's legally right to do, and no, we don't accept bribes, we do this, So there's a good movement happening in Brazil, leaving that old corrupt business behind and kind of coming into the new business.